Hey, it's April, and today I'm going to be continuing my Seven Sins inspired series with Gluttony, using this Draculaura doll I already prepped. To start modifying the face, I'm slicing off the nose and cutting out a hole for the mouth. I'm pushing a sheet of Apoxie Sculpt into the head. This will make the back of the mouth, and then I'm pushing it inwards to make room for a tongue. Add a pointy little nose. I think going with the simple anime style nose helps the face look less human and a bit more monstery. Roll out a little tongue to squish into the mouth. Add some texture. And now we need teeth. I've added a bunch of wires to support the ear spikes and horns. Once everything's sanded smooth, I can paint with acrylics. Sketch out her face with pencils. And blush with soft pastels. I'm adding some orange tattoos to make the face up a little more chaotic. I used a fluorescent paint which looks awesome in person, but annoyingly it's really reflective on camera. It was a nightmare to photograph. I'm making her fangs and spikes chrome. And covering her eyes, horns and tongue with gloss varnish. I also thought it would be fun to make her look like she's drooling, so I'm using UV resin to add some little blobs. Now she needs some clothes. I drew out a pattern for a Scoot-inspired bodysuit, cut the pieces out of 2 different stretchy fabrics, painted the edges with acrylics, glued the rib pieces to the plain pieces, and then stitched everything together. I also made some orange leg and arm warmers. Once everything's in place on the doll, I can add some paint. I imagine her to have a very manic and somewhat feral vibe, so I wanted to make sure her clothes matched that energy. To finish up, I'm lacing the back with some orange thread. Now let's make some claws. I'm going to start by bulking out the hands with foil and tape, then sculpting the details with some epoxy. For the feet, I took some doll boots, cut off the toes, trimmed the top, blocked out the shape with more foil and tape, and finished with epoxy. I'm painting with acrylics. And sealing the claws with gloss varnish to match her horns. And then covering them with faux fur. I'm absolutely useless at sewing with fur, so I thought it would be way easier to just cut off the fur and then glue it in place instead. Once the glue dries, I can trim down the fur. And then attach to the body. I'm using a strip of the fur to cover the gaps, tying with some thread, and finishing with a nice thick chain. Now it's time for some accessories. First up, her creepy little bag. I cut up some cardboard and glued the pieces together, covered it in black fabric, and glued on some epoxy teeth I made earlier. Added some acrylic paint, and some gloss varnish. Then wrapped the whole thing in some fake leather. Added a strap and more paint. I also want to add an eyeball keychain to the bag, so I made the base with some epoxy, painted it, and then covered it with UV resin. After a few coats, it looks nice and gooey, so I'm going to add a wire hoop to the back. Attach a chain. And then glue it to the bag along with some little studs. To make the first earring, I'm attaching some dollhouse gummy bears to fishing wire with UV resin. and then attaching a blob of epoxy that I painted chrome. For the other side, I made another eyeball. Attached another chrome ball, and then fixed them both to her ears using resin, as fishing wire seems to just completely repel glue. Last up, a little bee hair clip. This was originally supposed to be a Beelzebub reference, you know, the whole Lord of the Flies thing, but then I got really fixated on it being a bee instead, so it's a very loose reference. I cut the wings out of some holographic film. And then coated the whole thing in resin. I absolutely love the rainbow effect of the wings. I now need to make a character that has big versions. Finally, she needs some hair. I'm using a wig cap and gluing brushed yarn wefts directly into place. Starting with red, and then pink on top. I'm putting rolled up wefts where her swirl would be so that it's nice and spiky on top. Once the glue is completely dry, I'm cutting and styling with warm water and a little bit of glue mixed in. At this point, I realised it was looking way too thin and flat, so I added a bunch more of the wefts, and now it looks much better. And that's everything finished, so let's check out the final design. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more of my characters come to life, hit that subscribe button. See you next time!